Greetings and salutations, you stunning individuals. Yes, it is another epi of League Unlock. Eric and Mark with you guys for a little Week 5 Global Power Rankings. And let me tell you off the jump, this is probably the biggest shift that we have across the board so far in split number 2.
Shakeups are all aboard. Every region experiencing a little bit of this action going on. Some swip swapping of places. Dive right into it here, the Global Power Rankings.
And we're going to start at the bottom of the table this time. And listen, HongQ, maybe if you're able to close out a 10K gold lead and get a series, or a game, not even a series, a single game win against Gen.G, maybe you hold on by your fingertips onto this list. But a 5-series losing streak, you're off the board. And yes, we're giving a shout out to HongQ of all squads in that 20 spot.
And that is probably no greater example for the swip swapping, the type of movement that we are seeing within the regions with a squad like HongQ dropping that many games in a row. And again, despite a trade coming through for Diablo, not really having, well, I guess it maybe did have a little bit of that effect in getting that gold lead, but losing it in the fashion that they did and how quickly things changed around in that game too. Yeah, you're going to find a way to slip off of it. And the run that the Bros have been on in the recent stretch and the wins that they have pulled off, the upset, and then as well just keeping pace, you got to give them credit. And especially when our boy, your guy, Teddy in the bottom lane is making a difference for the team.
The human highlight reel, even on some subterranean teams over the last couple of years for Teddy. But yeah, obviously the KT upset, and going back even further, you know, they got 2-0'd by T1, but that was an absolute peak circus that T1 put on, and you got to give a little bit of credit to the Bros, but really tough to find a spot for number 20, and even NIP at 19 has slipped a little bit, and as a result, you have both Team Secret Whales, who are still perfect 5-0 in the LCP, and fresh off of the Castle trade, Lion Gaming skyrockets up one single spot.
We've seen trades be effective, so that can be one of those ones that you're looking at with Leon Gaming, and especially maybe, you know, you are one of those people that buys into the idea of competition breeds out the strongest version of your team or whatever type of thing, and it's an angle that you can take if you're looking at that. But I think when you're talking about this position, for me, it is the story about Team Secret Whales continuing to be undefeated in the LCP. It's just one of those things where, kind of given the way that things went at first stand without a CFO, you're still waiting on the LCP to prove or to reestablish themselves, I guess, in short order on the international stage before you're willing to go, I think, as crazy as throwing a squad like this Team Secret Whales up towards top 15, top 10 type of area until you can see a run like that at an MSI, at an international event.
I think they're now, you can put in that category sometimes of the LCS and LEC where there's that one dominant team that's not really tested and then gets pumped internationally. Secret Whales need a rival within their region to push them. If they just go undefeated again through the regular season and playoffs, I mean, you're not fully prepared for what an international event is going to throw your way. So hopefully somebody is able to step up to the plate in the LCP to really push them to the brink and at least take some series off of them. After that, we've got this absolute log jam of Western squads, and we'll get why, a squad like Cloud9 is a little bit lower than before, but really, you lump all these together. You look at Team Liquid, Koi, Na'Vi, G2, Cloud9. Maybe you put Cloud9 and G2 a little ahead of the other three, but I feel like any of these 5 squads could probably win a head-to-head matchup against one another.
I think that's one of those situations where that just depends on how heavy into the Kool-Aid you're drinking of Cloud9 and G2 that you would throw them above these other squads in this situation, because it really does feel like this logjam is more or less just this jumbling together of what is the top squads in the LCS and the LEC, and none of them have had a real opportunity to separate from each other within their own regions, never mind looking at the kind of the cross thing and global situation. But they haven't had that type of real true separation of we are the best of the best, the elite of the very good squads here within our region, you'd feel confident enough going to bat for one over the other in this situation. So I think kind of just this spaghetti mixture of Western squads here in this middle tier feels good to me.
Spaghetti Western. Perfect. Absolutely nailed it there on that. But listen, you are going to have huge changes in this chunk after next week, because not only are Team Liquid and Lion playing head-to-head, you also obviously have G2 and Koi are going to be playing head-to-head, and throwing Karmine Corp in that head-to-head as well. So I feel like after this next week, at least G2, Koi are probably going to be climbing and sniffing around that top 10.
Yeah, I feel less confident about the LCS half of this equation being really sorted out. I will say that we are going to be getting a lot of these head-to-heads within the top tier squads of the LCS in the next couple of weeks, so that absolutely is something that can change.
You might bring TL and Lion both down after their head-to-head defending.
That could be a consequence of that, but looking at the LEC side of that equation, yes, the roadshow for Movistar Koi, the lineup that is scheduled out for that, you will be seeing the movement in the LEC, and really, I think at the very least, unless someone isn't very dominant, you're going to see that establishing of who really is that number one, that top dog heading towards playoffs.
Now, the last squad on this board, we've been accustomed to them being top 5, top 3 for a lot of these first few weeks of global power rankings, but things have finally come crashing back to earth for Top Esports. 3 of their 4 last series they have lost. The only win is a rematch against Weibo, who of course 2-0'd them before that, but they lost to AL. Now most recently they lost to Gen.G. The drafts are a little bit all up in the air. The early performance out of Cream that we were getting in the mid lane has fallen off. The honeymoon of Jueon as the rookie in the top lane, it's looking very shaky for TES right now.
It is, and it's one of these areas where I think you start to, kind of push the panic button of, well, do we have Mr. 369 in the background? Is he ready to step back into the squad and whatnot situation? That could be one of the avenues that you look to change things up, save things for this team at this point, because it has been a bit of a free fall. And part of that has been Cream regressing a bit in the mid lane. We're starting to see some more of those mistakes that we know that he has made in the past, and especially in these crucial game 3s that you are getting towards. I feel like he has been a poor performing member of this top esports squad. And again, no better example than looking at the series drop today against Gen.G, which, yes, full marks over to Gen.G on the level up that we have been seeing from them, continuing to improve and work through things with Tabe behind the scenes. And again, HongQ getting accustomed to being in the LPL. And we are seeing how comfortable he is putting together the performance that he had throughout this day, and really pushing the power difference between a champion like Aurora and Victor in that third game.
Maybe this is a good thing for Top Esports to have the slump disaster before playoffs, before an international event. They get it out of their system and hopefully bounce back for a solid playoff push. We're accustomed to seeing that Cloud9 squad. They've been hovering top 10 for the last several weeks, but as we alluded to, some LPL climbing bumps them out. And even now, Vitality, poor guys, not going to be playing for 3 weeks. Hopefully, I think they'll still be able to hold on to this top 10 area, but the standout, obviously, climb on this board is Anyone's Legend, who now have not fully, but started to return to that old form. 5 series in a row. Tarzan still remains at the forefront of that, but AL, the last 2 weeks have looked much better than they have in probably all of 2026, really.
Yeah, and I think this is more so that course correction for this team. We knew that there would be some struggles, some differences without Tabe behind the scenes for this squad, but you still believed in the talent of the players and the growth that you had seen as that group beforehand heading into this year. And so to see it not fully translate over, not really get these type of performances, that's where the concern and the worries and the doubts can come through. But I think in this second split, and again, this recent stretch of the last 2 weeks or so that we have seen from this squad, yes, you can buy into what Anyone's Legend is doing and how they have returned to that form of one of the top contenders in the LPL.
which again is a fantastic sign, not just for BOG, but the region as a whole, to actually have some pushback at that top of the table. So very excited to see AL climbing, and with their climb, you see a couple of squads sandwiched in between. Both T1 and D Plus get knocked down a peg, partially because of the fantastic play out of AL, but T1, we learned they're not quite at the level of Hanwha Life right now, and D Plus, it was the same thing in their matchup against Gen.G.
Yeah, it feels like both these ones have been LCK teams that have been strong and are getting stronger at this point, which is good, but not strong enough to topple the task at the very tippity top of the global power ranking type of mountain. That's just the unfortunate reality of this type of situation and where you are. This isn't a bad thing for both of these squads, both still in very, relatively good positions for where they want to be at this point in the year, positioning for playoffs and everything else. But you would have really loved to have gotten those big head-to-heads and those marquee matchups for both D plus Kia and T1.
It's, a confidence boost more than anything for squads that have been a little bit up and down, and we're going to get a head-to-head between those two squads later on in this Week 6 action of the LCK. So obviously that'll be some major impact on the standings in these global rankings. But you still, obviously, T1 is always going to have the higher ceiling, I think, when you're talking about these two squads. But Shiwu continues to be kind of the standout on D+, and Smash in career, continuing to develop with such a young bot lane that has still been the best, most consistent bot lane D+ Kia has had ever.
Yeah, I think that can certainly be said for this team. So I think it's one of those ones where maybe, you're a little happier being D plus Kia in this situation than, say, a T1 who maybe still envisions that you can climb even higher or should be higher up in the hierarchy of the LCK and the global power ranking situation. But for D plus Kia, where things are, how good things have been so far, what you have seen as the sunlight that has shone through for you on the days, that is enough that you want to keep going down this path as this D plus Kia squad. And you're hoping, again, a couple of these things that have gone your way can continue to be X factors as you look to move up the table.
We mentioned Vitality should hold on to 10, even though, bare minimum, even though if they don't play for a couple weeks. Karmine Corp stays put in that 8 spot. They didn't even play this past weekend, but truthfully, if they have a dominant weekend, they don't even need to go perfect, but if they go 2-1 or whatever, like a really solid showing, they've got an opportunity. You might even see them climb as high as 7 or 6, depending on how AL does this week.
I think that they'd be very close to knocking on the door at the very least going, you know what? It's not a total waste of time to line up for the VIP club lounge. We'd only be like one or two people away from the door. Come on, it's crazy not to line up. I feel like that's the run here, and that is, again, a wild thing to say when you're looking at where, KC has been, but to be where they are now and the strength that we have seen from this lineup, and again, another opportunity. Maybe it's not your own, but still getting some action in the road show type of situation. This is going to be a big week for KC, and one of these ones where they are primed to come out of it. Again, considering they take care of business, and maybe Movistar Koi is faltering a little bit on the big spotlight stage, this could be absolutely one where you are running away with KC.
It might even be a bigger motivating factor for the Blue Wall to go into that hostile environment with their main rivals, at least fandom-wise, in Koi, to kind of turn that place into a library. So yeah, a solid showing this week for KC. Absolutely, you'll see them climbing even higher on these rankings. Cracking into that top 5 is a little bit trickier, and we just hyped up AL for their big climb. The other main contender status now in the LPL. A 5-game win streak is great for AL, what they're putting up. But how about getting one up with a 6-game winning streak now for Gen.G, who, yes, just got the series win against TES, even though they needed 3 games. At times, this was dominant, and they were clearly far and away the better squad today. HongQ, clearly the second best mid in the LPL behind Knight right now, and Gala kind of glided all over Jackie Love in this series.
And that is a scary thing for the LPL. The first thing, talking about HongQ looking like the second best mid laner in the region. Again, A pretty big gap, I will still say, between him and Knight at number 1 for the region, but I think that big gap between number 1 and number 2 has existed for the entirety of Knight State in the LPL. But for HongQ, this is really good because, again, this is one of those players that you had maybe some concerns, some doubts of whether this was too early, too much on his plate at this point in his career. But he has stepped up to the challenge. He is leading the way and being that leading mid lane figure for the team. He has brought over, a couple of a bit of some characteristics from the LCP, and then you look over in the rest of this team and you go to the bottom lane, and Gala is delivering exactly as you expected he would for this team. And that is more than enough to throw them into that conversation for the best squad within the LPL and the conversation about best squads in the world.
And Gen.G was the guy who picked up MVP of the series, who had 2 fantastic games and an absolute dud in the one that they lost, which, is the Tarzan school of jungling, where you're the MVP for either squad in the end result. But obviously Gen.G and HongQ, the synergy is still there, and Vampire has lived up to this. I say Gala glided on Jaculov, but it was really the bot lane as a whole, because Vampire has lived up to this hype prospect view that everybody had and has been a standout for JDG. Ahead of them is a squad who was hovering 1, hovering 2. We're not quite panicking yet, but KT Rolster, again, the loss to Hanwha, even though it was a dominant, convincing loss, is one thing. 0-2 to Bro, and I'm getting a few beads of sweat on the forehead, Mark.
Oh, man, you're a cool cucumber compared to me, man. I'm on the full-on Final Destination. I can already see the crash coming. I want off of this ride. Get me out of here. But we're already in the air on the roller coaster going down the hill as it is with KT Rolster. It's one of those ones, again, we've talked about this before, how much you want to throw in EWC qualifier performances and everything else, and really not that much, and again, almost a minimal level of value coming through from that. But when it comes alongside and it reaffirms the struggles that you are seeing out on Summoner's Rift during these LCK games, that is where it does contribute to what you are feeling and what you are understanding about this squad. And yes, it is a KT Rolster that I'll call it right now. It is a full-on free fall at this point. There needs to be that emergency break stoppage to find your footing at the very least. Never mind to reclaim and remove up the list of the LCK and the global power rankings. You got to find an emergency stop if you are KT Rolster.
Yeah, and when you dive a little deeper, we were hyping up Perfect so much during these first few weeks. He was a solo kill king. He was dominating most matchups. He's come back down to reality quite a bit with some of the big boys stepping up. Obviously, Zeus continues to be elite, even when he has some for fun matches. And Cuz has had some yucky performances as well as aiming. We're seeing some D+ aiming action where you're going, why is this dude standing over there?
It was one of those ones where I think so many things were going right and you were getting the best version of every single player that it wasn't sustainable for this KT Rolster squad. Now the question is, can you get enough of those aspects online, back in action for your team, that you are able to, again, hit that emergency break, hold ground, stop and keep where you are in the LCK? Or does it continue to be this Rolster, Colster, free fall until it's all done and dusted and it is that final destination accident at the theme park?
Final destination for them might be early exit in these playoffs, as we had, rounding out this top 3, both Gen.G and Hanwha Life on the Rift today, and we alluded to this 10K comeback from them. You can go equal parts, nice base defense, bad play out of Nongshim, but the real question with Gen.G is, when did Skarner become far and away Canyon's best champion?
Oh, I hate it. I hate that we're talking about this because it is a legitimate conversation point at now from what we have seen from him. And even more so this year, what we have seen from him and what has been the good performances or the ones where he is really one of those factors that is contributing, moving towards Gen.G getting across the finish line. That was today, and what you saw with the Skarner and how that went through. I think part of it is absolutely the Nongshim throw. I don't think you can lose an advantage like that in the first game without being part of that throw in action going on. but you still got to hold credit to Gen.G, and I think this is a better series overall from Canyon. Still, the story's got to be Chovy, right, that you're talking about with them and what is going right and what is the real reason that you are finding a way to be the difference maker. It's Chovy, and until I get proven otherwise by this team, I can't really get over the moon excited about Gen.G the way that I want to.
Yeah, I mean, Ruler is still looking hella sus, even against Diablo in this series, all the much maligned Diablo. Ruler was very much, this is like the third or fourth straight series where he's just kind of been along for the ride for some of these wins out of Gen.G, and you're going to need a better play out of him if you're going to compete with Guma Yushi, who just had a fantastic series for HLE, had some fun on the Rift against the Supers, and BLG still looks, very beatable. There's lots of weaknesses, but we're now back to kind of the norm where you have that top LCK team pretty distantly in that number one spot on these rankings.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those ones where it's more so about what has been going on in the LCK, and especially what has gone right for Hanwha Life at this point, that you're willing to throw them in that category and give them that extra little boost above who else is hanging out at the top of their region, top of the power ranking situation like BLG. I think BLG has certainly been one of those ones where you're really being paced off of some phenomenal performances from Knight, the occasional little pop-off here or there by one of the other members of this squad, but it really has been the Knight show that has, again, elevated to such a degree that you're at this point. But that does leave you vulnerable when you are looking at a squad like Hanwha Life and you are getting contributions from Gumayushi having fun in the bottom lane, Zeka styling out through the mid lane, Kanavi doing what he has done for the last half decade or so throughout this League of Legends scene and bringing it to the LCK now, and of course Zeus' action in the top side. Very much so happy and thrilled with what has gone on for Hanwha Life, and a very good rebound from being the last place team in the LCK at the end of Split 1.
Classic rags to riches story for Hanwha Life, because they're the only team on this board that I think you can confidently say all 5 members so far this split are getting A+ passing grades on the report card, and that's why they sit pretty at numero uno. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric Kidbark here with you, Stunners. Thanks for hanging out as always. We'll catch you on that flippity flip.